John, right at some point, don't they tell John to like turn his down? Like, but they're loud. So think about an amp on that roof, and it's only
there's
five
a story.
stories.
I thought there was a story where Mal actually went over to George's amp first and turns George's amp down, and George just goes back over. It just kind of
dials it back up.
Was unhappy with Mal and just was like, "What, mine?"
Me?
Just went over and was like, this one goes to 11, and because that's what you're getting now. That's
John,
what I thought I had heard about that little.
I can't help but think, but I do want to ask about that Polestar article because of what you're just saying. Like that article, is making the point of the equipment advances and the touring advances that happened in '69. I mean, any thoughts on that about, the article is the one that's about what if the Beatles had toured in '69? Would they have stayed together?
John will take you down the road of the Who and the Rolling Stones, and because, that's really at the advent of the, 1969 Woodstock, all that kind
the
of stuff.
start of stadium rock and roll and arena.
Yeah, I don't know if we touched on this in the past.
I'm trying to remember. Did we?
It was like 66.
Although you mentioned it.
Right, 66, the Beatles stopped touring. Early 67, the Stones.
66, though, John, if I'm not mistaken, they're still literally playing through the PA system at Shea Stadium.
No one's touring with the PA. That's right. It's what's there. And so, and I think the Stones play some dates in early 67 in Scandinavia, and they don't tour again until 69. And
that's what the article mentioned.
When is the Who coming up with this idea?
Well, the Who don't invent anything. They just don't stop touring. Right? They watch it evolve, but no one else knows about it. Right? It's like nobody like the biggest.
Are they forcing it? I should say. Are the Who forcing it, or is it just because technology and it's just like, hey, we happen to have this available to you now, and the Who are just there to pick up the
now
pick up
from
the
what
lucky
I
strike
understand,
there.
it kind of comes out of Bill Graham and like the Dead, and that they're playing in the park. They're the Fillmore East or Fillmore West in the Avalon Ballroom are improving sound, and the concert experience is it's what they call festival seating now, and like it's a big ballroom, and they're dancing and you're sitting on the floor, and there's a rock show, and they play for a couple hours. It's not as
it's 20 minutes on and off.
It's not like five bands with a comedy and a host and blah, like that. It's evolved out of that, right? And so it's become more the San Francisco, like the acid parties, and like it's like you play a long show, and it's coming from other genres of music too, like the Cream are right there too, because now it's like we're gonna play and we're gonna jam, and it's gonna it's all about the musicianship, and you're gonna listen to us. You're not gonna come and dance and sing along to the hit.
That article pretty much references that the Stones are the ones that 69, they're right there when they're, and it's like the Stones are an influence, but the Stones literally turned to the Who like to go like yeah.
I gotta just interject. When does Get Your Yayas come out?
Early 70, because
never mind. Question answered.
That's the same tour we're talking about. That's the live album from this tour.
It's fun. We're talking about two bands that like pioneered the whole sound thing, and yet you kind of go, well, Live at Leeds or Get Your Yayas, take your pick. Like which one is the greatest live record?
Well, one's actually live.
Oh
no, look at it.
Oh.
I mean, I love both those records, but Live at Leeds is a great live performance. Get Your Yayas has a lot of sweeting.
All right. We'll get to that at some other, but go ahead with our original premise about the live.
So the Stones have now done this big tour. They go out in late 69. This is after the January Let It Be sessions.
Yeah.
So the Beatles would have had to have figured that out, or how would they? Because frankly, the Stone, I guess, the Stones going on tour, they're playing like Madison Square Garden they're actually doing a day show and an evening show. It's not even like, they're right. And so it'd be interesting. Like, what would the Beatles would definitely have refused to go, we're not going to do stadiums again, even though, you're starting to get like, by 70, like Grand Funk Railroad's playing Shea Stadium with real sound. Mm-hmm. Like you're doing, like Woodstock happens with real sound. Like, you've had Monterey Pop, but, with certainly not as good a sound as Woodstock, but you have the Dead traveling, putting with Owsley Acid there, Owsley Stanley building sound systems. So that's all. I mean, what is going to do it?
I just push it out further of like the point of the article is like, if they had gone on tour, would they have stayed together? Because he makes the point, his point that he's pushing is that, they're such a great band that was capable of busting out a song, sitting around, and not just writing a song, but in Get Back stuff, there's 4, 5, 6, 7 songs they'd easily just pick up on, whether it's Chuck Berry or...
It's such a what if, because at the end of the day, I don't think it was a lack of talent. It's.
But they weren't saying that. It was a lack of playing. They needed to play together and play out live.
But that's the thing is, Brian, there was no leader. There was no true organizer anymore. Like John was the leader, but John could barely drive. Like, you know what I mean? He never got, the joke was that he could do nothing for himself, so he couldn't actually organize anything, and they did.
Being on the road itself and the kinship that fosters would have been enough to keep them together.
Or the magic.
I don't know.
The magic that
magic on stage.
Playing.
Yeah.
Like we had some friends of ours that like mentioned, oh, well, this song came out then. And, this was off, this was on a thread again. And the song like Across the Universe came up as like, a Let It Be song. And John and I both John answered, but like I recognized right away too. That's just like, no, that came out before. And John was just so disappointed in one of the songs that he mentions late in his life in 1980. As a matter of fact, like one of his regrets is like, it's a great song, like, and it's one of my personal favorites. Like, I had a kinship with that at some point in my life when, you just fall in love with things and you think that nobody understands you, and you listen to Across the Universe 1,000 times.
It's a great song, yeah.
And yet he was so unhappy with the way that came out. So I just don't see it. Like, There's two things that go on with that guy. Like, on one hand, like, I think he really loved the Instant Karma kind of the whole vibe of it, the immediacy of it. Like,
but he didn't
went in, I wrote the song, we did it, but yet he also laments the fact that they didn't spend any time on Across the Universe. He's just like,
but you're, but at the same time, it's like, but all of the things that he seems to get excited about were the things that he wasn't doing with the other guys.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But George was like in the same boat, and said it like as early as Get Back. He's, just back from the United States. And, like, what am I doing here?
But that's right. So, I think that it's just wishful thinking on that, because the mindset that didn't happen, that happens all the time now, is you can do both, like they're all of their solo projects were, while the Beatles were still getting together, were really kind of left field. There was no threat to the Beatles at all, right? It was all these, you're gonna go off and do. So it was almost like you couldn't do the thing that you were most talented at, that you really wanted to do, without checking in with the other 2 or 3 of them.
But and the Beatles are also the first unit to be presented as a rock band to the whole world in a sense. Like, you could have replaced any one of Bill Haley's Comets and no one would have known. Even Elvis's bands and stuff like that. Elvis was the guy.
Honestly, even the Beach
almost
Boys.
Anyone except for the Beatles. The Rolling Stones did it. In the midst of being the Rolling Stones, Brian Jones dies and they do it. I'm sorry?
Well, someone died. I mean, they threw him out before, but yeah.
Yeah, they did. That's a big deal. Like for you, you can't dismiss that. They did. They threw him out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're still gonna have a band called the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Could that have happened?
Well, the entity is bigger than the individual.
Ringo out. Even.
Well, I mean, that's a little fine line there, because there was definitely, the singer of the Moody Blues first hit, Denny Lane, leaves the band and they continue on as Moody Blues. He sang the hit.
Yeah, but
5 years earlier,
I agree.
Yeah.
Is Go Now really their first hit? That's the first Moody Blues hit?
Yeah,
No
like
kidding.
64. They don't have a hit again.
I guess I didn't know that.
68. Right? There's a lot of scenarios but to your point is, I don't know who the Hermits were.
That Chas Chandler played bass in the Animals because of Jimi Hendrix. Otherwise, you'd never know who Chas Chandler was.
That's true, and he leaves pretty early to go in his thing. But like an Alan Price, who go, he leaves, and the Animals kind of fall apart, and they become Eric Burdon and the Animals after that. Right? It becomes they get the name.
I didn't realize that.
That's when they separate the name.
Yeah.
I remember, you're right. Like when you say it, I go, right. They are Eric Burdon and the Animals, but I forgot
power, baby,
that they were the Animals, and then they.
But it was interesting is right. But at the same time, is Eric Burdon alone wouldn't be nearly as valuable as Eric Burdon and the Animals. Like Diana Ross didn't go out and become Diana Ross. She was still Diana Ross and the Sopranos.
That story I'm a little bit more familiar with.
Yeah.
That's, whatever. By the way, have you ever heard Eric Burdon being interviewed by anyone and just him talking?
Yeah, well, it depends on what year, but yes.
It's unbelievable that it's considered the English language. It's like he's from. Are they Newcastle? Where are they from?
Newcastle, right? Isn't that farther north than?
Oh my God! I believe you're right.
It's like hillbilly speak.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. You're like, what is that?
No, but what's more unbelievable is they sing, and you would never know that, right? Until you hear them talking.
That was a big deal, by the way, in the United States with the Beatles. So,
you couldn't understand them.
Wow, not to mention, which we've mentioned, which we've mentioned before, that when the Beatles came back from Hamburg and they were put on a bill at Litherland, people were just like, wow, you speak good English for Germans, and the fact that when they sang, they sang like Americans, but, they were clearly, influenced by all those early American bands, but
I had a friend that worked with Eric Burdon's manager, who in the last, this might be a 10-year-old story at this point, but well in his career, and they were trying to there was some jam bands and whatever that wanted to have Eric Burdon part of festivals, and including possibly a Lollapalooza or certain, and his manager slash younger girlfriend was like, he doesn't get out of bed for less money than it was an opportunity to sort of associate him with contemporary, and it was all about the dollars and whatever. And Lord knows if it ever even got to Eric Burdon making it. But if you notice, he's got I don't know if you remember, there was maybe 5 years ago. So Springsteen was he did a keynote speech at South by Southwest. Usually that the main person, they have a big keynote person, and he must have spent 15 minutes of his speech that went viral talking about how Badlands is exactly, please don't let me, oh Lord, please don't blame me, be misunderstood. And he's just dun, 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 it's dun, 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 dun. These Badlands. And he's just like, see kids, this is how it's done. And and it's like that, it's something like that. It's but where the hell's Eric Burdon? Not that Eric Burdon wrote the song, but he's a guy that it all happened 50 plus years ago, and for some reason, for as important, like he was a band the Stones loved, everyone, like they had such credibility.